What's going on, guys? Gamers going here today with your Arsenal recap. And obviously, yesterday we actually did pick up the victory. Good news to be said coming into it. Let's pull up FOTMob right now and look a little bit more into what we did. But Arsenal, they did their thing. They did their thing. Towards the end of the game, I was trying to pay attention to two things. So probably right after the go ahead goal is probably about when I started watching the Bears as well. I'm a Chicago Bears fan, so started watching that as well as Arsenal. So if I miss some things, I miss some things. Oh well. But I thought we played pretty well. We should have been up 2-0 in this game. Gabriel Martinelli did have a goal. It got ruled off sides. Eddie Nketiah kind of played it off sides. Real close. Real close. And ultimately, he did end up touching it off sides. Played it to Fabio Vieira. Fabio Vieira had a beautiful pass. And then Gabriel Martinelli just absolute great placement of the ball over on the right-hand side of the goal, opposite side of where he was coming from. Just absolutely beautiful ball from him. Unfortunately, though, did not count. And unfortunately, though, Gabriel Martinelli did go down in this game. He did have to come off. And let's see if there's any updates on Martinelli. He suffered a muscle injury. What else? I don't know how long it's going to be. He said he had a muscle injury, and we will see. So, don't really know what extent that injury is just yet. But our starting lineup yesterday, we did move around a little, few pieces. Obviously, everybody's been talking about Kai Havertz. Hasn't really been great for us just yet. Obviously, paying $65 million, you want him to come in and have an immediate impact, kind of like how Declan Rice has for us, and kind of like how Jurrien Timber was doing prior to his injury. But you kind of expect or want him to come in and be able to get that goal for you. Obviously, he's been playing in the midfield. They've messed around with him up at top at the playing one of the forward positions. I mean, they've tried to figure out where to best utilize him, and he got moved to the bench for this game. And I think rightfully so. Not necessarily say we need to give up on Havertz or anything. I just think it's hard to deny Fabio Vieira the opportunity to play with how good he's been playing this season. He's already let's go into Fabio Vieira. Yeah, he already has 2 assists. He's only played in 3 matches. Fabio Vieira has been kind of like a spark plug off the bench for us. So I think he definitely deserved the opportunity to start. So that was one of the changes we had. Kind of surprising heading into Champions League this Wednesday. We did not get to see Gabriel Jesus start up at top here. We actually saw Eddie Nketiah start for Arsenal, and I think that will be changed come Champions League. I do think Jesus will be the starter, but we will end up seeing on Wednesday, I guess, against PSV. But that's going to be something we're going to have to mess around with. Who's going to be the starting striker? Is it going to be Eddie? Is it going to be Jesus? I don't know. I mean, this could be a wild thing also, but it could even be Kai Havertz with his struggles. If they want to move him around, really just try to get him anywhere and everywhere and see where he really sticks. It could be Kai Havertz. I wouldn't test it in the Champions League, but I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, he's kind of got a little bit of a bigger profile there, so you might test the waters there. But in the back line, I think this is going to end up being our Champions League back line right here. You got Zinchenko back there, Gabriel, William Saliba, and then you got Ben White. So I think those guys are going to be the guys in Champions League. I imagine Tomiyasu will be coming off the bench. I don't expect him to start really. Kivior should probably be coming off the bench, I would imagine. So we'll see what happens with the back line, but I expect that to be our Champions League back line heading in to PSV this week. But yeah, I thought the starters did pretty well. David Raya played his first game of the season. He looked pretty good. He got a 7.7 rating. He only had one save, but what I really liked is there was this one, he got the ball and he went to play it down the field. He went and kicked it. Perfect ball right down the line to Saka. And honestly, Saka didn't end up winning it, but I thought that it was a very good placed ball, and just a little bit better defense there from them. But Saka really had a good chance to make something out of that, and I liked that look. I liked the idea of pushing the pace, getting down the field quickly, trying to catch them off guard, and really hitting them with a quick counter. And that was beautiful from David Raya last game yesterday. Obviously, I'm doing this on Monday, but it was beautiful from David Raya. I absolutely loved that from him. And then our subs. I mean, we got Kai Havertz in the 80th. We got Tomiyasu in the 80th. Two guys I think will play parts in the Champions League run. Obviously, Kai Havertz hopefully will be in good enough form that he can start at some point in the Champions League run. But I think with Kai Havertz, I think once he gets going, he'll be fine. But you got to get him. You got to give him that little kick. You got to give him that little motivation right there. And being a bench sub could end up being that motivation that he's looking for. So we'll end up seeing what happens with Kai Havertz. I do expect him to play a role at some point in the Champions League run, and hopefully a vital role at that. Hopefully he can go in there, get a couple goals, start feeling like he's doing better, and really get some momentum on his side, because I think that's what you need with Kai Havertz. Is you got to get him in the right momentum, and then he'll really be a standout star for us. But Tomiyasu, I think obviously Tomiyasu is somebody that I don't think you necessarily, if you have to put him in, I don't think he's like, oh, we got Tomiyasu in. I think he's a great backup. I think even if Zinchenko goes down at any point, he'd even be a good fill-in there. Tomiyasu is somebody that I definitely expect to be in that Champions League run. Another problem with Tomiyasu is the same problem Zinchenko has, though. That's the only issue there with Tomiyasu, to be honest with you, is it really they could get hurt at any point. They're a little bit injury prone, so we'll see what happens. Like I said, Jesus, I expect him to be the starting striker in Champions League. Not sure if he will this Wednesday. Jesus has yet to start for us, and I don't know if he will start this game, but we'll see what happens with Jesus. And then you got Trossard, the game-winning goal, the guy that did it all for us. Trossard, he's been obviously he came into the season looking great. Hasn't necessarily looked great through the first few games of the season. When he has got his name called. But the good news though for Leandro Trossard is that he found his goal. I think that's a good momentum boost. Obviously, going into the season with how great he was playing, there was talks, oh, maybe he should be the starter over Eddie. I think Eddie's been great. I think Eddie's been phenomenal. But Trossard, I would say, I would use him as a super sub, kind of like they did here. They kind of didn't want to use him when they did. Obviously, Gabriel Martinelli going down in the first 24 minutes. That's when Trossard came on. But I think Trossard, if you get him going, coming off the bench in like the later third of the game, he could be dangerous. He's a guy that's going to find the back of the net, and he's somebody that I think could be a key to getting a couple goals there in Champions League games. When it gets all tough and it gets gritty there towards the end, and you need a fresh set of legs, and you call on his name, I could see him being the guy to get a few goals there for us. And then the guys that didn't play, obviously. We know Ramsdale didn't play, but I expect him to probably start against PSV this week. Kivior, we know he didn't play, but he'll be a good fill-in if somebody were to go down, unfortunately. We do have injury concerns there that are even getting more escalated because our depth is a little bit questionable at this point. But Martinelli going down is not a good sign, but I think we do have depth at the wing positions that can fill that in. But Kivior, he will be good if Gabriel or Saliba or somebody goes down, or even if they just need a game off. I think Kivior's phenomenal. Emil Smith-Rowe, Same thing. We haven't seen him yet this season. Not sure why. I think he's great. I think he's one of our better players when he's going. But unfortunately for him, he's competing for time with Saka. He's competing for time with Martinelli. It's gonna be a tough time to get on the court. Not the court. This isn't basketball. On the field, and I mean, unfortunately, he hasn't got the shot yet. He hasn't got the opportunity yet. I hope he plays a role in the Champions League because I think Emil Smith Rowe is one of our better players. Like I said, when he's in rhythm, I think he's really good. But we'll see what ends up happening with Emil. Could end up seeing more of him in Premier League games. That's what I actually thought. I thought we'd probably have Saka coming off the bench because coming out of the international break for England, there were some concerns about a potentially lingering injury there with Saka. So I did think Emil Smith Rowe would get the start, would get his number called here, but he didn't. So that kind of shocked me. But we'll see what ends up happening with Emil Smith Rowe. He's yet to get a minute this season. Don't know if your first minutes in the Champions League is a smart decision from Mikel Arteta. I'm going to be honest. We'll see what ends up happening there with him, though. And then, obviously, somebody I think is going to be a crucial part for us, Jorginho. He's going to be somebody. I mean, obviously, Declan Rice at some point will need a break. That's a great player to have if you need a break. Obviously, he can fit anywhere on the. I think he's one of the better midfielders we got. Obviously, if we get later into the Champions League where we're in the elimination stages, he's a great player to have on the field at the end of the games because he's so good at taking penalties. Jorginho, in what we've seen of him this season, he's came in more so as somebody that's kind of like, I guess you could say, playing the more. They're bringing him in defensively. And he's been pretty solid. I've thought he's been pretty solid when he's gotten his name called this season. He's only had 3 appearances, but I thought he's looked pretty solid so far this season for Jorginho. So we'll see what ends up happening with Jorginho, but it will, imagine, get a decent amount of time in the Champions League. And last but not least on our list of players that did play, we have Reece Nelson. He didn't play, but we're on the bench. Reece Nelson, once again, somebody that I think is a spark plug off the bench. You bring him in, the whole team seems to be playing better. He's only played in 1 Prem game this season so far, I believe. I think he only got it. Yeah, he only got in against. Did he only get in against Man United? He only got in against Man United, but I think the team plays a lot better when Reece Nelson's in there. I think there's just like an aura to Reece Nelson, to be honest with you. I think he's somebody that brings the team together, something like that. But Reece Nelson, I thought, in his limited appearance this season, I thought he did pretty well. I remember thinking Reece Nelson played longer than he played 1 minute against Man United. Surely that's wrong. I don't know why, but I've for some reason I feel like I've seen Reece Nelson play more than that. He played in the preseason. Huh. I thought Reece Nelson played more than that, but we'll see what happens with Reece Nelson. I thought he was pretty good when he did get his name called this season so far. And then names that we haven't had. Jurrien Timber, obviously we know he won't be back until January, if that. So we'll see what happens with Timber, but don't count on it for Champions League, I would say. And this is kind of like a Champions League thing as well, this video. But El Nini, he's back in training. Could he get his name called on in Champions League? I'm not sure. We'll see what happens with El Nini. He might get his name called in a Prem game. I don't even know if he will get his name called. Not really sure whether or not they have any plans of getting him back into the lineup. He probably will not start if he's there. I would imagine he would come in more as a bench player to give somebody a break. But we'll see what happens with the El Nini. Then you got Thomas Partey, who is back mid-October, it seems like. We'll see what ends up happening with Party, but obviously he's going to be a crucial part in the Champions League run. Obviously, we were playing him there at right back earlier this season, but I think of him more as a midfielder, a center mid, center defensive mid there, a holding midfielder, kind of like Declan Rice. But obviously, if you've got Declan Rice, what do you do with Thomas Partey? I don't know. I'm going to be honest. Maybe you try to experiment with both of them. I doubt that would be the case, but we could see something like that. But we'll end up seeing what happens there with them. But who else do we got that wasn't on the list? That could be getting some Champions League time. I doubt Cedric would get Champions League time. I don't think Sousa or Hilson are going to get Champions League time. They're on the roster, though. Yeah, I think we got everybody. So we'll see what ends up happening. But for the most part, I think we're in a good spot going in the Champions League. Couple injuries. PSV, not the toughest of opponents, but still you got to take them serious. But Everton, I think you guys did a great job in that game. I'm gonna be honest. I think that we dominated that game probably the entire game. Let's see. Possession. Yeah, we possessed the ball 74% of the time. We dominated possession. We expected 1.02 goals. Took 13 shots. 4 were on target. We had 1 called back off an offsides. We pretty much dominated this game. I know it wasn't the flattering 3-0 or 4-0 type of scoreline that we might have been hoping. But outside of maybe 1 or 2 times that Everton got up the field, I wasn't really too nervous on their attacks. And then Arsenal, I think we were just completely controlling the game the whole time. I think we should have been up 2-0. But obviously, Nketiah being offside did take it away. But unfortunately, we only got 1-0, but it works. It works. Still 3 points. We'll take it. And now we will go into the Champions League on a winning slate. We'll see what we can do against PSV. I'm hoping we win, obviously. We'll see what happens. How'd PSV do this weekend? Anybody know? Let me go to our game on Wednesday. PSV. They just got a 4-0 victory. They've had their last 3 games are 5-1 victory, a 4-0 victory, and a 4-0 victory. That's fun. De Jong at top has been their lead goal scorer, it seems. Veerman from the midfield got 4 assists so far. They got Serginho Dest, U.S. men's national team representative. So this is going to be a fun game, I think. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think we can get it done. I think we will get it done. But thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in for not only just to talk a little bit about what happened at the Everton game, but also what happened or what we can expect to happen heading into Champions League this week. So obviously that's going to be the big thing for us this week. We're ready for the Champions League. We're going to have it back in the Emirates for the first time in a while. So we'll see what ends up happening for us. But it should be a fun time. I think it should be a pretty fun time. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.